Welcome, everyone. Michael Blank. Welcome to the Lower Makefield Farmland Preservation meeting for November 2022. And joining me tonight, I'll go around. Sean Carney, you can raise your hand. Dan Bonkoski, George Hines, and Dennis Stedman. All right, well, let's jump right in, George, with approval of the minutes from our last.
Sure. We've finalized the minutes from the last meeting. Everybody's had a chance to view them. So I'd like to make a motion or hear a motion for approval of the October meeting minutes.
So moved.
Seconded.
Second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Approved.
Okay, so do you want to do part of the treasurer's report, Dan? That's the next item.
Yeah, we'll get started on that. So we got two parts today. We're going to go through the accountant's compilation for 2021. And then also we're going to talk about Fidelity and our annual review by Fidelity of our investment allocation. So when Robert Small joins us, we'll go through the compilation component of this. So with respect to Fidelity, so on an annual basis, Fidelity reviews our investment decisions and our investment objectives and confirms what they recommend our asset allocation to be. We were currently, or we had before this, an investment objective, what they defined as balance, which was 60% equities, 40% bonds. And of course that ebbs and flows, and they make adjustments to the portfolio as needed, but it basically stays within, call it 5 percentage points of the objective there. So, and I had shared, it's actually, I think I emailed it, but it's also in the SharePoint file, the letter from Fidelity. So I just want to walk through the risk tolerance questions, how we answered them. But the punchline here is that Fidelity came back and recommended we stick with the same allocation of 60-40 balanced investment objective. So I'll kind of do this shorthand here a little bit, but how would we consider our corporate financial situation? Answer that question, secure, right? Because I think we have plenty of assets. We don't spend very much of them on an annual basis. Investment knowledge, we answer that sophisticated. Risk tolerance from a 1 to 10, we put ourselves in the middle at 5. Stock market decline. So this question is saying that if that if you have a short-term drop in the market, what would you do? And what they're trying to get at here is, would you panic and sell a bunch of your position? And so we said that we would not, essentially, but our answer is that we would sell less than 25%, which was the most, there was no do nothing answer. It was sell less than 25% was the lowest there. Questions around taxes, which are not applicable because we're exempt. Corporate liquidity needs. So the way we answer this question is that to answer this in a fashion that we don't have significant needs to pull from principal. And what we did say, though, is that we could see a situation where we may need something larger over the longer run, no shorter than 6 years. So what we're saying at the moment is that we wouldn't start making withdrawals from the principal until at least 6 years out. They would be regular. They would be a very small percent. We chose the lowest percent they had, which was 0.1 to 4.5%. So we kind of felt this was a little bit of a middle ground. This is the same way we answered it last time. Really, we don't use much of principal, if anything. We don't even use our investment income most years either. So this is really kind of capturing, maybe it would increase in the future if maintenance requirements increase, and we still never really increased rents by that much to cover it. And the factor that we may do something more meaningful, which we said the answer I think was less than 50% of the total. I think we actually said it was significantly less than that, and it was less than a 50% chance of taking out something meaningful out of the principal, but it would be more than 6 years out. We said that it was unexpected to have any significant corporate contributions.
Right.
And then just one last point so that you guys are aware, what we have is a Fidelity managed account, and that Fidelity uses their funds. And I didn't print this out here, but I can get it to you later.
You need their mutual funds.
Correct. So
Right.
it's Fidelity mutual funds and ETFs that are in our portfolio. And this is just a reference in case if you guys don't remember. And Mike, I don't have it in front of me, what our fee is that we're paying Fidelity, but we chose Fidelity funds so that we have a lower fee rather than them pulling in some non-Fidelity funds into the portfolio.
This is Bob.
Oh, hey, Bob. Good to see you
Hi.
there. How you doing?
Our Fidelity investment fees in 2021 were $6,352, which is on a percent basis for what the assets they're managing are greater than $1.2 million. So the fee compared to what I see others are paying is modest.
Right.
Bob, I lost your voice when you gave it in a percentage context. What was the percentage? The 6.3 grand on top was a percentage of the asset fees.
I get 0.5%, and that's about what I remember. So 50
Yeah,
basis points, I guess you call it.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
it was between 45 and 50 basis points is what they
Yeah,
officially
that's
call
okay.
it. Yeah.
That's what I'd recalled. Thank you. Okay, thank you. That was just an audible problem. Thank you.
Okay, good. And, just to add to what Dan was explaining, I looked at a 10-year run, and actually I think I sent a 9-year run. But when I look at our operating income, which is excluding investment activities, interest, capital gains, those sorts of things. If I look at our operating income, rents from the farms, those sorts of things, versus our operating expenses, repairs, maintenance, and some overhead fees, we are slightly positive over a 9 or 10-year period. So when literally on an annual basis, our rent income is covering, on average, all of our expenses. Last year in 21, we did have some higher repairs and maintenance, but over a 9 or 10-year period, our operating income is covering our operating expenses. And over this 9 or 10-year period, the capital gains that our investment income, called the Fidelity accounts and theirs, is currently around $1.2 million, where 10 years ago it was $600,000. So our securities, our investments have increased. They've doubled over the last 10 years. Now, the market in 22 is a little strange, but we'll see. But, from my perspective, the organization's operation income is covering its operating expenses. And this is a tax-exempt entity, which is admirable. I mean, we're not relying on contributions. And that's been my observation over reviewing the history here, is that the farm income is covering our expenses.
Hey, I don't know where the noise is coming from. John, he's muted. He can't. Oh, Okay, thank you.
So, anyway, this is consistent with the message or the overview that Dan was providing.
Thank you, Bob. A question on that operating expense versus operating income. That's clear and it's good news. Did you look at that for the last 3 years or so, a shorter period, or what would the summary be? And or for the single year of 21, our operating income versus operating expenses?
If I look at the last 3 years, it is slightly negative because we had some higher maintenance in 21.
Right.
I don't have the details in front of me, but I think we did, I'm guessing, some fence repair and some other deferred maintenance.
Right.
But in 2020, it was positive about $700. And in 19, it was negative by a few $1,000s.
Okay. Thank you.
Dan, two quick questions real quick. It sounds like as far as fees are based from Fidelity, we have what would just kind of be what's known as a wrapper. So they're charging us a flat 50 basis points on AUM. They're not charging us a management fee and then charging us for the ETFs and mutual funds that we're investing in, if I understand that correct.
Right.
And two, the way that we answer those questions, are they basically just trying to take our pulse on how we feel about market changes? Or if we're answering that we're not going to be pulling on principal for X amount of years, is it allowing them to purchase any illiquid securities? Meaning, would they be putting us in anything specifically because we're answering that we wouldn't be drawn on principal? Something that wouldn't be, as easily to be sold in the marketplace.
Yeah, we have with Fidelity, they are not able to put us in anything that is illiquid. Okay. Everything they put us in, everything they're allowed to put us in, is daily traded, and we can get out in T+3 essentially.
Okay.
And
Traditionally, when someone's asking if you'll need the money in X years, they're looking at like private equity investments, things like that. But that is not the case here. They're asking the questions more to take our pulse on our view of our assets in the markets.
Yeah, it's purely the way they're asking that question is if we were going to tell them that we were going to take out 75% of the principal in 2 years, they would then skew it much more conservative over that same time period. The same same idea. If you're retiring right now, you're going to go more conservative versus if you're a young guy, you're going to be more aggressive.
Understood. Great. Thank you.
And to Sean's question, Dan, about the expenses, it's not just the basis points. Of course, each of the mutual funds has their own expense ratio. So
yeah, they have the fund itself still has an underlying fee as well, but we're not paying a separate management fee. It's just this fee. So I think that I don't think there's anything necessarily to decide on unless if anyone, Fidelity has already made their recommendation and continuing to keep the account at 60/40. So unless if there aren't any other questions, I can kick this back over to Bob here. And Bob, if there's anything else you'd like to walk through from the compilation perspective. And let me just introduce you since you kind of came in here during our starting point. I think I introduced you a little bit before we started, but Bob's been doing our taxes before any of us joined the board, I think actually, and and then I forget how many years ago we started doing an official compilation like this, but it was 5-ish years ago, I think.
Maybe a few more years than that. And
yeah.
The idea that we do the required filings with the federal, And because we are not soliciting contributions from the public, we are not required to file a Pennsylvania return, which is nice. It's squeaky clean. Now, the federal 990 does become public information. You know, anyone, if they have our name, they can go on to GuideStar and a few others and get a copy of our 990. So it's publicly available information. And I just felt, and this goes back a number of years ago, given that the assets are there, Mike and I decided to do the financial report. And it provides some historical information, and the financial report is in layman terms, if you will. It's easier to read than a 990. So for those that aren't having a financial background, it's readable. And the other thing with the compilation, the prepared financial report, there are notes about the organization, how it's managed, that sort of thing. And I think it's appropriate. And I mean, this is, so that's what we've been doing. It's the continuity. So I think that, and things are, I mean, we have made, or Dan, somewhere in the transition with Mike and Dan, we have made, consolidated some of the cash investment assets, and even the transactions are, we don't have a lot of transactions, paying bills, things like that. So, you know, Dan has orchestrated, not orchestrated, I would say he's managing operating transactions within or under the Fidelity umbrella. So having it in one entity, it is, we know it's all consistent, and that's worked out well. It's
Yeah, I can just to add to that, for I think mostly, well, for George and Sean's benefit, perhaps. We used to have, well, all the investments used to be at Vanguard, and then when we'd pay bills, depending upon the size of it, sometimes we pay it from Vanguard, sometimes we pay it from a William Penn checking account. Depend, it would go back and forth. When we started doing our investments at Fidelity, we eventually moved all the investments to Fidelity. Now all we have is two accounts. We have a cash management account at Fidelity. The only thing we use there is keep cash in it, pay the bills, and then a separately managed account at Fidelity that is the regular, all the regular investments.
right.
Makes sense.
If there were more, call it trade transactions, then we might go back to a traditional, call it bank checking account. But at this point, I don't see that changing, and it's been consistent. You know, the minimal transactions that we have are predictable, and it's the same players. So it's worked out well the way Dan has set it up.
Good.
Dan, do you want to comment on QuickBooks? And I think that Bob's firm has been doing that for us as well. Is that worth mentioning?
Well, I'll let Bob answer that. We wanted to migrate, but Bob, I'll let you answer to the extent. Did we get it migrated on?
It is no. The quick answer is no. And it, for what we have going here, it would probably, the way QuickBooks has changed its fees, we'd wind up spending almost, I don't know, $600 to $900 a year on QuickBooks.
Wow.
And whoa, Mike said. And right, so there's, and the way the transactions and the way Dan communicates with myself, and Kelly Jopko's been monitoring and tracking the details. It wasn't, we couldn't justify that expense.
Makes sense.
And what I have done is I've created an Excel file that tracks historically. And that's this file, this information is reconciled with the compilation report and the 990. And that's where I'm citing, I'm looking at these reports, and I can, Dan and I can share them with you if you already don't have them. But we don't have any curveballs, which is
Very good.
And everything's on our SharePoint. So if you guys go into the financial section in our SharePoint, you'll see every Fidelity statement since inception. You'll see Vanguard statements. You'll see every invoice that we've paid and a copy of the check. And you'll see then under the annual section, you'll see all these compilations since they started and all the tax returns as well.
Mm-hmm.
Just in case you guys didn't explore that section.
And Dan, the compilation is now complete, and are you going to circulate that to the board?
Yeah, I sent everyone an email a couple weeks ago about it. It's already shared it's on the SharePoint already.
Okay, I must have missed it. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Anything else to cover there? Any questions? Yeah, Dennis.
I have a tax question for Bob. As a nonprofit, as you say, we're not soliciting contributions. What are there any unique tax treatments or implications if this organization sold a farm product, or how would that be treated?
That would be the revenue and the cost and the margins would have to be reported separately within the 990.
Right.
I mean, it's unusual that a tax exempt organization would be buying and selling products for a profit. But it's allowed. It's allowed.
Okay.
I mean, we have
some places will, they buy T-shirts and handbags and sell them or whatever, and I don't know if it's a contribution or a product sale. Does it help if the product was not a sale, but it's provided as a reward for a contribution? Does that make it worse or easier from a tax perspective?
It just adds another variable that has to be tracked, Dennis.
Okay.
And if we were to begin doing that, we would have to file a Pennsylvania BCO 10 and that sort of thing. It's just another wrinkle.
Okay.
And
Gotcha.
it is, I see other, call it tax exempt nonprofit entities where they need that income from that products to survive. I mean, typically, with the assets that Lower Makefield Farm Preservation has, you wouldn't want to do that. And keeping track of the inventory, buying it and this and that, it's just, given where the assets are and I would see if maybe the T-shirts were bought and given away. For an example, there is where I don't have it here. One of the farms, it's the Charlin Farms, does, some holiday activity, where they have, a farm day and, they dress up some of their animals as reindeer and things like that. And if Lower Makefield Farm Preservation were to participate and show up and have a table there, you might want to give out T-shirts just as an awareness.
Right.
Because what you have here, this is a unique entity. Solebury Township doesn't have anything like this. Middletown Township doesn't. I mean, this is a unique, and kudos to the people that set this up.
Yeah.
So I can see T-shirts, those sorts of things being used as an awareness of,
Right.
rather than an income thing.
Mhm.
And it is about just public perception awareness. I mean, we have a hobbyist producing honey, and we've given some of that away. And I've
Mm-hmm.
been asked at a booth, like, why don't you sell this? I'd pay for this honey. Well, not our business.
No,
But I just wanted to ask while we had you on, because it's just
yeah. I mean,
there's no plans in that direction, just a curiosity.
I think it would be more of a headache than
Yeah.
it's if you were to buy them and give it away. You know, you've got this honey, call it client. I think they pay us $50 a year or something like that.
Right.
I mean, we might want to ask them for, why don't you give us $100 worth of honey, and then you hand it out at some
Right.
event, or
And then it's a PR expense, and we're done.
yeah, I think it's
Okay.
I hope that helps.
No, it does. It does. Thank you.
Okay, good.
Anything else for Dan or for Bob?
No.
Okay,
If you come up with a question somewhere, and even during the course of the year, you know, don't hesitate to track Dan or myself down. We'd be delighted to, you know, provide some information or guidance.
Great.
Okay.
thank you. Thanks.
And
thanks, Bob. I guess, Dan, you're in a what, Penn Station? Is that what that is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay. You were
Okay.
saying, Bob. You were saying, Bob.
Well, you know, I'm happy to be part of this organization and contribute. And, you know, and it comes back to the Michael days when was you know, I keep our fee about 50% of, called the market rate. Just, I enjoy being part of this group, you know.
Thank you, Bob.
And Dennis, if you ever, you know, create these T-shirts, I want one.
You'll get a first. You'll get a first.
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We
thanks, Bob.
appreciate that support, Bob.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for all you've done for us for all the years you've been doing it. You and your organization. We
Yeah,
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. All right. So we'll if no other questions or comments on that section, we can move on. Updates. So we've covered the fidelity review to your satisfaction, Dan?
Yep.
Okay. So updates. So let's go over those. The first one is for actually all three are for Dennis. We divided them to three. So Makefield Brook, the missing I-295 fence, anything there?
No, status quo. Can't raise the contractor. The township has contacted them. I'll continue to ping the public. Well, no, that was Jim Majewski. That one is Jim Majewski. The others are Public Works. But
Okay.
yeah, no update.
So Dennis, this is George. This is my question. If this continues to go like this and we still have a hole in the fence, what the heck are we waiting for? I mean, to me, the issue is if we really think the fence needs to be replaced, repaired, closed, are we going to sit here 2 years from now and still have an open fence because we're not doing something about it because the township and these contractors don't want to get back to us?
The requirement for the fence and the responsibility for the fence is really the highway department. They're obligated, since it's a limited access road, Interstate 295. They are obligated to put a fence along that road to assure that limited access. So it's their fence. It's and they should be replaced. They took it down to rework that bank as they cut into it, and they should replace it. We're simply on the land on the other side of that fence trying to remind them of their obligation. I mean, in that location, it doesn't impact us whether there's a fence there or not, in any meaningful way. It seems like to me that if they were responsible in doing their job, they would want to put that fence up for liability, standards, to meet their own standards. But I don't see it as a problem that it's not there, but they should see it as a problem.
And it's
But
on
clearly
their
they
land.
don't.
It's on their land. Or
It's on their land. It's that
Yeah.
heavy chain link. It's not the fence we put up. It's a much heavier.
Yeah,
Durable.
I understand. I guess
Yeah.
my point is, if it's their responsibility, it's their land, they're gonna move at their own pace. And
Yeah,
I would say at this point, it's resolved from our standpoint. There's no sense continuing every meeting to say it's still not there and they're not responding. If it's no big impact to us, let's just take it off the darn agenda and be done with it.
Well, there's George, excellent talking points. There's no need from a safety standpoint for Tim go rolling down the hill with his tractor.
no,
No, okay.
I mean, it's, he's farming. The field ends 20 yards, before this fence, and it's just overgrowth, brush,
Right.
small brush that we clear out, if it was in a neighbor's backyard. It has no impact on us. It's more, something that they forgot. I mean, I agree with George. I don't look forward to saying there's no progress every month.
Yeah,
I
right.
mean, I can, ping the township one more time and say, we're leaving it with you.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that.
It's a true definition of a parking lot item that just keeps coming up, and we don't need to do anything about. And the other thing is, you might mention to Jim that perhaps the township could consider writing a letter, but just from our point of view, writing a letter to the Department of Transportation, because once their customer gets to know of this, that's when you get the action from the contractor.
I would think. Yeah.
So anyway.
I'll speak one last time to Jim.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. A couple other things. There's an open utility box. This might be a similar situation, but
Very analogous.
Yep.
It's on township property. That is right beside our property.
Mhm.
And so for someone working the field, it represents some risk. We've mitigated that risk. Tim's aware of it. It's flagged off. That whoever owns those towers is, not responding. I'll remind the township one more time, and then I think we'll kind of put it in a parking lot, and every quarter I'll let you know I'll let you know when it's done. They will fix it. I mean, this happened years ago, and I was told it took a very long time for them to come out, but they did ultimately repair it. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm.
And then the other item on Clearview is Sean and I were out with kind of on the spur of the moment. We had got Tim to go around. Sean had wanted to show the buffers to him and ask him some questions about what they were, what the stewards were doing. And Tim said, Sean, you asked if there's anything else that Tim needed from us as far as the buffers. And he talked about on Clearview, that line of pine trees was, I believe they're pines, was hitting their equipment. The branches are overgrown, and down that access road, they're poking holes in their equipment. So I started off by contacting the township and asking them, could they limb those trees? And they said, oh no, that's farmland. So then they called back about 10 minutes later, said, oops, we looked at the maps and there are trees. So I turned it over to Dennis because it's his, parcel. And I don't know what anything else further has happened.
Yeah, I reached out to the new head of Public Works, whose name I'm blanking on right now. I sent him an email saying, here's another thing at Clearview in addition to the utility box. And I reported what you had heard about the budget. And I said, please, look into this and put it on your list of things to do. He said, I will. I'm not sure about the timing. And I responded, as long as it's done before. He asked if there was any urgency. I said it needs to be done before planting time in the spring. I could, just to be realistic, he's harvesting right now. It's not going to happen in a week this fall. So I said, as long as it's done before spring planting, he said he would try, or some kind of soft position or statement like that. So I'll
The language
ping him in the
language of that last email, Dennis, was worth following up on, because it basically said, if it doesn't get done, remind me that it hasn't been done. And he tabled it until the spring of next year at a minimum.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't hold our breath on this one.
Derek.
No, I'm not either. But I figure I'll come January, February, I'll ping him and ask him for a date. I know he's brand new. He's getting his feet underneath him. So I'm walking softly.
That's Derek Fuller.
Thank you.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Issues. Okay. And then on Longshore, there's the respect our trees signs that were taken down.
Right. Derek has no knowledge of what might have happened to them. I think, as consistent with our last conversation on this, let's wait and see if the issue arises again with people posting things on the trees. If the issue doesn't come back, why spend any time or money on this topic?
Mm-hmm. Okay. That makes sense to me. Others, you agree with that? Yeah.
I agree.
Okay. So anything else, Dennis?
Nope, nothing here.
So the next thing, I put this under winter work for, maybe Sean, you want to take it away for what work you talked to Corcoran about for the winter.
Yeah, so I can spend I don't know, probably 5 minutes and cover all of this. So as we discussed in the last public meeting, the fourth and final buffer cutting was done about 2 weeks ago. Everything went well. During the cutting, Matt sent me a couple of addresses for us to take a look at where there was debris thrown over the fence. So he wanted to alert us to that. I contacted Mike about a couple. Mike went and spoke to the neighbors, and we basically just inquired about how it may have gotten there, spoke to them, and let them know that we'd be picking it up, kind of with the agreement that this wouldn't reappear there. So a couple of piles have been picked up on different farms. There's 2 places on Farm View 1 back on Fairfield, which you can't get a truck back there to go back and pick it up because of the buffer. So that still remains a place where maybe we can do some additional work. But all of the piles have been picked up. There were some branches that were down, so on. They've all been removed. So I don't know who's had an opportunity to go out and walk their buffers. Dennis, it looked like you did. I got a nice email from you highlighting some stuff. Mike, I know you did. I got some from you. I walked mine. They all look in good shape. I took some notes. But as you know, we've negotiated this 10 working day contract with Corcoran. I had a sit down with Matt probably 10 days ago, 2 weeks ago, to go over some ideas, thoughts that he may have, given how often he's out on the properties. I wanted to get input from all of you, but I figured what I would do is I'd propose kind of, what I've put together through speaking with Matt, speaking with you, and walking the properties, and then you can all let me know if we need to discuss any other areas, either on this call or in a special session. But unless there's any objections or other considerations, I'd propose the following for our winter day projects. We allocate 1 day behind what I'll call 2088 to 2092 Farmview Drive. So that's Leadham Farm, to begin in a fence line clearing and cleanup that extends about 120 yards in length. The area in this buffer is not consistent with the rest of Leadham's. It'll be an ongoing project. I don't think it will be, I know it won't be accomplished in 1 day, but because of the low priority of this job, I think the way we do it is we allocate 1 day annually until it's done. And if that's 2 years, it's 2 years. If it's 3 years, it's 3 years. I know that before I started managing Leadham's, this was an area that Dan had pointed out. So it's an area of some overgrowth. I think there's more than one situation going on there, but I'm thinking that once we clear our side, it may entice those neighbors on the other side to cut right up to their fence and alleviate an issue. But again, these two residents look a lot different behind their home than the rest of the buffer, so this would be for consistency. I have it marked with fluorescent orange flags out in the buffer if anybody is out and wants to take a look. Again, it's about 120 yards in length. So that would be 1 day. Allocate 2 days behind 2015 to 2019 Leadham's Drive, so that's Stackhouse Farm, to begin a fence line clearing and cleanup that extends 100 yards in length. The growth limits the ability to get machines through the buffer area, consistent with the rest of the area. This area is also marked with 2 fluorescent orange flags if anyone's out and about and would like to take a look. This is an area that Matt has highlighted. It's an area, if you walk Stackhouse, you'll see. It's kind of by where the pipe went, the gas line went, but it's very overgrown. Some trees need to be raised, some trees need to be removed, some debris needs to be removed, and an overall fence clearing needs to be done. I allocated 2 days there. I don't know if it gets done in 2 days. That might be a little aggressive, but again, it's about 100 yards in length.
And what's the street?
Sean, I've walked back there. I'm assuming that that's the line that comes down kind of behind Leadham's before it gets to the retention basin.
That's correct. 2015 to 2019 Leadham's, it leads down to the retention basin.
Right. Okay. And I've walked that, and I agree that it needs to be cleaned out. I mean, even some of those branches are right hanging over the buffer, and that there's not enough clearance between the planted crop and where all that tree and brush and underbrush is. So yeah.
Correct. Okay.
And
if you walk it again,
to it from Dolington, it's easier getting to it from Dolington
yes,
than it is from Brookfield.
Correct. Yeah, they'd be getting there from Dolington. And if you walk it now, you'll see there's 2 flags out there at the beginning and the end of the work, just to make it very easy. The third project I'd say is kind of our priority project. I've allocated 5 days to this one. Again, might be a little on the aggressive side, but starting out that way. This would be behind 1367 to 1385 Brentwood Road. That's Makefield Brook Farm, to do an intensive fence line cleanup as well as tree work. This area is not consistent with our buffer areas and needs to be addressed now. Trees need to be elevated, limbs need to be removed that are out over the buffer area and even into the farming area. A new fence line kind of needs to be established, not in fence, but once we cut up to it, we'll have an established buffer again. Given the size and scope of the project, I will notify Dennis when Matt is on the property, so that Dennis, you can stop out there and have some eyes on it. You took some pictures, sent them to me. I know you kind of have a vision for how that should look. Matt has mentioned it on several occasions. That's an area that we need to address. So I think between the two of you, we'll get it addressed. If everything went to plan, that's 8 days that are used. I did that for 2 reasons. One, to hold 2 days in our pocket in case, like last year, they get into a project and say, we need 1 more day here to complete it. We have it. If by some chance everything went to plan and they were done, there are some small, low priority projects that could be touched on that I've kept notes on. Farm View 1, 1620 to 1630 Fairfield. There's some debris that's been thrown over the fence. The buffer area is incredibly narrow, mainly because some trees need to be raised. This is an area that we've walked. Matt has said, you know, if he had a day to spend back there, he could do some good work. And then the other one is Heather Ridge off of Trowbridge, where we did some work about a year ago. If you remember, we partnered with a neighbor there where they had some work done. We had some work done. There's still about another half day to a day's worth of work there. My personal opinion is we don't get to those this year. I think the 10 days will be spent at the projects that we lay out. But it's nice to have a little bit of leeway in those days. So I'm obviously open to any thoughts, questions, comments, or other considerations that maybe I've missed.
All this work is being done by the contractor and there's no volunteers?
That's correct, Robert. We pay to have all of this done with large equipment that we just don't have, nor do the farmers have.
Good, good. I'm glad to hear there's no volunteers doing this work, and especially when I hear that there's equipment. Okay, good. Thank you.
Liability, is that the concern, Bob?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
John, that sounds like a very well thought through plan. I think it's wise to only allocate 8 days. I mean, stuff happens, a tree comes down in a snowstorm, or you know, these are the things that we know of, but there's always unexpected, or usually unexpected, through the winter. So you have a couple of days in your pocket for the unforeseen. That makes sense to me.
Okay.
Yeah, this sounds good to me.
Okay.
I wanted to mention that along the lines of the buffers, I think we've said in amongst each other that the buffers look great. Well, the neighbors they really do. The neighbors are beginning to recognize it too. They think in many cases that they just got lucky and the farmer just, you know, trimmed it and it's going to grow back again. But as much anytime we meet the neighbors and can educate them that this is a new regime and it's going to look hopefully like that pretty much, it'll add to their satisfaction, our satisfaction. And I want to recognize Sean for the idea, and Sean and Dennis for carrying out the breakfast or whatever it was that you convinced the stewards to go along. And it's been a great boon for all of us on the board and for the neighbors and for the township. Thank you.
It's nice of you to say, Mike. I walked 3 buffers in the last month, and the thank yous that I got from people who were out working on their yard were many. People waving, very polite. Hey, things look good. I thought it was very nice. And if you go back and look in our minutes, I think as a whole, I think we'd agree. We spent a lot less time talking about buffers this year.
Yeah.
I know we had a lot less conversations with neighbors that wanted us to come out and look at different things. We had a few, don't get me wrong. I think we'll always have a few, but I think we had a lot less and we spent less time on it. So I think it was good. We, as Mike mentioned, we grabbed Tim Stewart before harvesting time last weekend. We met him a little before sunrise last Saturday morning, walked a bit of a buffer to take a look at it with him. We're able to ask him some questions about different waterways, how he wants those cut, what some plans are, things like that. They seemed very happy. It seems like it's going well. So Dennis, I know you and I, as a follow-up, we're going to schedule maybe another breakfast at the diner and kind of get some feedback on it and hope that we'll continue doing this.
No, well done, Sean. I mean, it has worked for our neighbors and for us, and I'm glad to hear that Tim is pleased with it. I presume in that conversation you didn't have the explicit conversation about, are you willing to belly up to this bar again next year, right?
Nope. So this was kind of more of an open. This was less about business, and this was more about, hey, just we finished for the season. Want to show you kind of what it's looking like on our end. Is there anything you need help with from us? That's when Tim brought up the trees on Clearview, and we talked about a couple different things, but we didn't get into whether we'd sign on the dotted line for another year. I figured we'd save that for a separate
Right.
conversation. We did take him over to
Okay.
a home on Dolington where we need a little bit of help. We just need him to cut back a row or two of corn where he's planting, because we need to keep this 25-foot buffer in areas.
Yeah.
And we only
Yeah.
have about a 10 to 12-foot buffer in an area. So we wanted to show him. And obviously, very happy to oblige. He'll just cut back a little bit and we'll have that buffer back in no time. So it was a good productive hour. We asked for an hour, we promised an hour, and we were done in 45, 50 minutes.
Yeah.
Well done. Well done. Where do we stand with actually paying Cochrane and Shoreland Farms paying their half? Is that all behind us? That's all.
Not completely behind us,
administratively,
but
that's
very
all
close.
done?
Yeah. So what happens is every time he cuts the buffer, the day he finishes, the following day he invoices us and Shoreland at the same
Okay.
time. He
Okay.
has stated that he gets Shoreland's checks very quickly. So he
Okay.
said, everything's being done. I think we have one final payment to Corcoran Landscaping for the final buffer cutting, and that's it. So that's all behind us. Then the 10 winter days is a completely separate kind of contract. So that we handle on our own.
Yeah. All right. That's good. I'm glad it's working that way, and Cochrane's getting paid quickly, and he's satisfied. That's a clean way to do it. Well structured.
Yeah.
Good. So if nobody has any objections, what my thought would be is, I know that Matt spent some time in Florida in the winter. His son is here in the area. Part of the team is here. If we agree that this is the way we'll allocate 8 of the 10 days, then I'll contact Matt. I'll go over this with him. It'll be very clear because this is pretty much about what we talked about and how we talked about doing it, and then leave it up to him when he wants to get to it. We usually give him the months of December, January, February, whenever you want to get to it during those winter months, and it needs to be done before planting season. He knows that. Just leave it up to him to do. And then again, we have a couple of days in our pocket. If we lose a big tree in a storm, we still have, that time on our side. We wouldn't be paying for the project, we'd be paying for the hours.
So my only question, Sean, is when you say leave it up to Matt to do the work, is he doing it based off of our priority though? And, we're basically saying, okay, here's number 1 priority. It definitely needs to get done first. And then here's the second priority, et cetera. So we don't get to the end and we have something that was a high priority that doesn't get done because he was working on the other items. When you say it's up to him to do it, how much latitude does he really have? Or is he doing it based off of our priority and we don't care whether he does the number 1 priority in December or January, but that he has to do that before he gets to the other stuff?
Yeah. I try and stay in our lane. I give him the 3 projects, let him do them when he wants to. He knows the priority job this year is the Makefield Brook Farm because that was on last year's list and we didn't get to it due to extended work at Farmview 1. He knows he only has a day on Leadham. He'll only have 2 days on Stackhouse, and he'll have 5 for Brentwood. If he comes back and says, hey, I can finish Brentwood with 1 more day, we'll probably give it to him. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But I'll leave it up to him how he wants to tackle them because it's different equipment, I think, in different places. He's going to have the big equipment down on Makefield Brook. I think what he'll do on Stackhouse and on Leadham will probably be a bit of a smaller crew personally, but I leave that up to him. He knows that we have 10 days with him over the winter. We'll get the 10 days used.
Okay.
So to tie this topic up, I'll make a motion that we approve the projects for Corcoran Landscaping as detailed by Sean Carney and leave it at that. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Yeah. Good job, Sean, and have the go
Thank
ahead.
you, Sean.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Any other business? So we're up to other business now. No? Okay. All right. I'll ask John, any public comment to this point?
No public comment online.
All right. before we get to review action items, just a reminder that as we said at the beginning, so we're looking at December 20th for that holiday meeting. Right? And
Right.
what do you think about Janelle and Katie? I was just thinking maybe we invite them too, right?
I'm okay with that.
Give them
The
the
more the
opportunity.
merrier, Mike. 'Tis the
Yeah,
season.
okay. So
You should ask, and Mike, ask, you should reach out to Doug Riblet too.
Oh, right, right. Yeah, I just emailed Doug. He's doing fine and gave him the update about what we're doing with buffers. He said that sounded really good.
Okay.
Thinking back to what he dealt with all the time. Yeah.
I'd like to buy his book yet. Is his book out yet?
Oh, I didn't know. Yeah, I hadn't heard.
You know, related, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dan.
Sorry. Just to finish that, Bob, you're welcome to join. We're gonna
Yeah,
have our meeting. Our December meeting is gonna be at the bar. No Zooms.
At the vault. Did we say
Okay,
the vault? Did we conclude?
I will look for that invite.
I think
All
that's
right.
what we said for the time being. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I will send those invitations out.
Okay. Also, Mike, this time of year, I think we usually put a gift card in a holiday card for
We
Katie
do.
and Janelle,
And Janelle.
right? Those two,
Yes.
who give us such great support all year administratively. I just kind of want to pull the board. Is everyone good with that? I forget the details of what
Usually it's 20
the
bucks,
amounts.
20 bucks a piece,
Okay.
$100 each. So if you guys are you agreeable to doing that? I can just Venmo.
I'm happy to, yeah, I any recognition we can give them, I think is well deserved.
Yep.
Yep,
Okay.
agreed.
All right. So I'll get the cards and I'll Venmo each of you for the payment.
Okay.
That's great. Yeah.
Okay,
Not,
so
not you, Bob. I won't ask you
now,
to
Bob, you're not on that list.
not on that.
No, you're talking $20?
No.
No.
No, no.
It's coming from the board. That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, but thank you.
Okay.
I just texted you guys. We did a bigger amount last year.
Good,
Oh, okay. Okay.
good.
Okay.
Oh, yeah,
thank
it
you.
isn't a total of 20. Yeah, yeah. Oh, anyway. Thanks, Dan.
Yeah.
All right, so we can move on to the action items. George?
Yeah, we don't have too many of them and they're all basically with Dennis. So it's basically Dennis is going to follow up one last time with Jim Majewski regarding the missing fence and the utility box issues. Dennis, you're also going to follow up with Derek Fuller regarding the pine tree trimming on the township land. And then later on, sometime early next year, you'll kind of ping them and see if they've actually made some progress.
Just one slight correction. Jim Majewski is the fence only.
Right.
The open utility box is also Derek. Just
Oh, okay.
so your notes are accurate.
Okay. No problem.
Thanks.
And then Mike, you'll take care of the gift cards for
Yes.
Katie and Janelle.
Yes, I will.
Okay. That's it.
All right. Okay, so adjournment. Can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting. Sorry.
I'll second.
I'll second it then.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Have a nice evening, everyone.
Have a good night.
Okay.
See ya.
Bob, great to see you.